Welcome back. My name's Annie and this is my creative detour. Today we're going on with the next full deck challenge card, and it's card number 35, and the prompt today is alphabet. So the full deck challenge, for those of you that are new, hello and welcome. You might not know what it's about, but basically we alter a playing card every week, and Shana from ShanoukiArt, she hosts it, and she puts out a prompt. And like I said, today's prompt is alphabet. Now in the full deck challenge, you'll have to carry something over from your previous week's card. So here's my last week's card, and it was Happy Scraps. And I'm going to be carrying over book pages. So you can see in the background of these flowers here that I turned into Happy Scraps, there's text. And so I'm going to be using book pages, but I'm also going to be carrying over some die cut in black, which you can see I've got some sprigs here. So both those things I'm going to be carrying over. And I have to use my constant, which is paint samples. So here I used black paint samples that I die cut the sprigs out of. Today I'm going to be doing a similar thing. I'm going to be die cutting something out of a black paint swatch to go on the card. So let's get set up and I'll show you what we're working with. So today we're going to be doing some watercolor. So I've brought out my Kuretake metallic gold palette watercolors. And I've also pulled out a page out of a typing book. So here it is here. I bought it from a thrift store. You can see I bought it for $2, and it's a practical typewriting learning book for you to learn how to type on a typewriter. So I've taken that book page out of here, and it was one of the lessons, and I've cut it up, and I'm going to be using a typewriter. So we have our book page here that's out of the typewriter book, and I have two pieces cut, one for the back and one for the front. And you can see that for the front piece I have punched a hole in it, and we're using the Queen of Spades, and the hole that I punched was so that I could see the spade. I wanted to see the spade, and I have die cut out of black paint swatch, which is my constant, a Q. And I actually cut 3 Qs out and glued them together for the Queen of Spades, and I'm going to put that over the top of that so it's got a little bit of dimension to show that it's the Queen of Spades. Now what I've also done is I have stamped a typewriter from Stampers Anonymous, and it's a curiosity shop. So I've done the typewriter and I've done the piece of paper to go in the typewriter, and we're going to chat about that in a moment. But I'm going to watercolor that first, and I'm also going to do some gesso on it on the background. So let's start putting the card together. So the first thing I think I'll do is I'll do the back. So I'm not using the exact alphabet, but I'm using components out of the alphabet that you would use if you were practicing to learning to type. So let's stamp today's date on this first. Oh, I did it a bit crooked, but that doesn't matter. We'll glue that on the back just with some glue stick. Yes, so when I was looking at what to do with today's card, I had a few ideas actually. I was thinking about the letters of the alphabet on a typewriter, and then I remembered that I had a book on learning to type, and I'm not sure whether other people of my generation, now I'm in my upper end of my 50s, I learnt to type when I was a teenager. So the school that I was going to, the high school I was going to, it had some night classes on, and my parents thought that it would be a good idea for me to learn to type. Back then we didn't have computers, we just had typewriters. We actually had electric typewriters, but we didn't have computers. And I used to go to night classes and learn to type. And I didn't mind typing. I was never very fast at it. I still know how to type correctly with the right fingers, and I still don't type fast, but I can do it the correct way. And I also, when I was a teenager, got sent to elocution lessons. I don't know whether people know what they are now anymore, but they're kind of like what you would call like a finishing school. We don't have that many finishing schools here in Australia. So she would teach me all of these things that different people thought were important. Now you can see that I'm just putting a little bit of gesso on the card, and that's because I don't want some of the information showing through that hole that I've punched. I want to disguise it a little bit, or at least pull it back. And I'm just going to put a little bit of gesso on this because I think I'd like to stamp some other letters on it. I've pulled out the inspector, and I'm thinking I'd like to stamp some of these letters around the card before I put the typewriter on. So I'll just put a little bit of gesso on just to pull back some of this. So that it's in the background. Okay, I've just dried that off. Now what I think I might do now is I might stamp this and then heat emboss it. I think what I might do is I might just tear a little piece of paper, just copy paper that was on my desk. We'll have the typewriter sitting here. So I think that if I mask it, that's probably going to make it easier for me. Okay, let's give that a try. And I'll just try and tip this so that it doesn't get into my hole too much. Yes, that's not too bad. And I'll just tidy up. I've got a few bits that I'm not liking. I'm not liking some of the blobs. So we'll just get rid of a few bits. So let's now heat emboss this. Okay, there we go. That's where we're at with that. It's not perfect, but it's fine. So we'll put that to the side. And I have now got a typewriter that I stamped, which I showed you. I'm going to put a little bit of watercolor on that. I'm just going to put some metallic watercolor onto the typewriter. What I'll probably do is I'll speed up the video and put it to some music, and I'll see you back here in a moment. Okay, I have finished that, and I have watercolored the typewriter, and you can see it there. And I have also watercolored and put some gold on my message. Now I've got a coded message. It's not that hard to, break the code, but we'll chat about that in a little bit, and that's going to go into the typewriter. So let's pull in our card now. And I'm going to ink this up a little bit so that it all, looks like it belongs together. So let's put some vintage photo on it. I'm going to ink it quite heavily around the edge. We'll stick our message in our typewriter. I'm just going to curl this a little bit and maybe rough it up a little bit with my scissors. So it just looks a little bit more scrappy. Yes, that looks better. And we'll stick that in the typewriter. And it says HB2ME. Now, it's a little bit of a message that's what my sentiment is going to be on my card this week. It's relevant to something this week. So if you have a bit of an idea of what it is the code of, write a comment below telling me what you think the code means. We'll see how we go with people figuring it out. There we go. There's the message in the typewriter. HB2ME. Now, I have a cue to go over our spade for the Queen of Spades. Yes, so I decided that, talking about doing typing lessons and elocution lessons was my news for today. A little bit of backstory of Annie's years of growing up in New South Wales. There we go. There's our Queen of Spades glued on there. It's a little bit of a different way to show the identifier of the card this week. I'm liking that. And we'll put our typewriter on here. Let's just put a little bit there like that, and we'll fill it in if we need to. Oh, let's get a cloth and wipe some of that off. I'm liking those corners curling up. They look good, don't they? Bit of texture. We'll stick a little bit of glue under here to glue our return handle down. I used to love the sound of the electric typewriter. I loved the whirring of it when you turned it on, and then the click, 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 click when you were typing. And when I first watched You've Got Mail, don't we all love that movie with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan? And her boyfriend at the beginning, he had an obsession with electric typewriters, and he would talk about it. And when he was talking about it, it reminded me of my lessons of learning to type on an electric typewriter. Okay, so we're at that stage. It's getting close. I'm going to put an eyelet in it, but I also have some embellishments to put on. Now, I made these little embellishments out of jump rings. You can see the jump rings there. And what I did was I punched out with a very small punch. I've got a 9mm punch, which is about 3/8 of an inch. I punched out a whole heap of scrap paper, and then I glued on the 10mm jump ring. Now I've got a antique gold, a gold and a black, and then placed the jump ring over the punched piece of paper, and then I filled the jump ring up with glossy accents and left them overnight to dry, and it turned into these lovely little discs that have got a gloss to them, but they also have little pictures, and you can see I did clocks and I did lemons and lots of different bits and pieces just of scrap paper that would have been thrown in the bin. Now, I saw Tony from Crafty by Tony doing these, and I think she got it from somebody else as well. They're really easy to make, and like I said, just punch a piece of paper, put the jump ring on, fill it up with glossy accents, let it dry overnight. Now, what I'm going to do with these is I have got the word see, S-E-E. I'm going to glue that on the typewriter because this has got something to do with this and time ticking. I've got a tick, 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 and I've got a clock and time's ticking and there's things to see. So I'm going to glue those on, and I think I like them there. They don't have to make sense really of where they're going to be positioned. Just need to be on. And they were really fun to make, to be honest. I just got some greaseproof paper and put it on my desk. I punched out a whole heap of tiny little letters or numbers or timetables. You can see here I did coordinates out of a atlas and little pictures, and then I just put the jump ring over the top of the paper and filled it so that it had a bit of a convex kind of hill on it. Left it to dry. Now some of them did get a bit of an air bubble in them as they were starting to dry. So I just stuck a tiny little, very, very, very fine pin, or it was a needle actually, a very fine needle into the air bubble to pop it so that it would be gone. Now, where do I want this? I want the tick, tick, tick and the clock. Now, we need to put a hole in this. Let's put the eyelet in so we don't get that in the wrong spot. Now, if I can find Tony's video, I will link it below so that you can see her video on how she made the jump ring embellishments. Now I'm thinking before I glue these other ones on, I think I possibly need to put a few white splatters. Now I've just masked off a few things that I definitely don't want the splatters on, and I'll be very precise with where I want them. And I'll just dry that off. Now I need to put on the clock and the word tick. I'm not sure whether you can see that. It says tick. Yes, let's do that. Hold that for a second. Let's see which way the clock goes. Hold it on. Okay, let's clear the decks and I'll show you the card. Okay, here's our card for today. Now the prompt for today's card was alphabet, and you can see that I have used a book page in the background. So last week's card had book page that I put the happy scraps on. In the background of this, it's got a book page, and so I carried over that, but I also carried over die cut black paint swatch. So you can see that I die cut out the Q out of black paint swatch, which is my constant, but I've also carried the die cutting over. So that's the paint swatch that I die cut out the Q from. Now I also did some stamping in the background and did the heat embossing, and I stamped the typewriter and put a little bit of watercolor on it, and I've got a message in my typewriter that says HB2ME, and I use some embellishments on here that spell out the word C, and I've got tick and a clock that's ticking, tick, 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 tick. So pop a comment below if you know what all of this is alluding to. So let's add this week's card about alphabet to our family. I'll threadle it on and do it up. There's today's card. I hope you enjoyed it. Something a little bit different. I sometimes have a character. I haven't had one in a few weeks now. I'm going to have to pull something out. We haven't had a character since our steampunk owl, have we? But I'm liking the typewriter. It's got a bit of a vintage feel to it, and it's a little bit grungy, but not too much. Yeah, I enjoyed doing lots of different techniques on that one today. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, that'd be wonderful, and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all very soon with another project. Have a great week, everybody. Bye for now.